The palace was quiet that morning. The sun had just begun to rise over the dragon empire, casting long golden beams across marble halls and shining towers. Most of the dragons were already awake, polishing scales or practicing their flight. But in a far corner of the palace, behind locked doors and forgotten corridors, sat a young dragon prince. His name was Logan Veyron. Logan was different. His wings had never fully healed after a fall during his first flight, and because of that he could not soar like the others. Other dragon youths had strong, shiny wings ready for the sky, but Logan's were fragile and uneven. He had tried once long ago to join them, but he had fallen and everyone had laughed. Not cruelly but coldly. They did not mean to be kind either. They had simply looked away. Since that day Logan had spent most of his time alone. He sat by the tall windows of his room, staring at the open sky. Sometimes he imagined the wind lifting him, carrying him over mountains and rivers. But every time he tried to spread his wings, he remembered the pain and fear. So he watched others fly instead. The palace hallways were full of dragons who prided themselves on strength and skill. No one visited Logan's wing. Nobles passed by with polite bows, tutors offered empty words, and friends were few. He was not unhappy, he was used to being alone, but there was a quiet emptiness in his heart that he could not name. One morning, as Logan traced his claws along the windowsill, a soft sound echoed in the hallway. A broom brushed against the marble, leaving streaks of dust in its path. Logan glanced up. Through the open door he saw a human. Humans were rare in the palace. They cleaned, delivered messages, or ran errands, but no one paid much attention to them. Most dragons ignored humans, seeing them as small, weak, and simple. The human paused at the doorway, noticing the young prince. He had short brown hair, eyes that were gentle and watchful, and a calm way of moving. His name was Ethan Clark, and he was the palace janitor. Unlike others, Ethan did not flinch at the sight of dragons, or the size of the halls, or the golden glare of royalty. He just nodded. "Good morning, Prince Logan," Ethan said softly. His voice was quiet but steady. Logan blinked. No one had called him by his name in weeks. Not a tutor, not a noble, not even his mother. "Good morning," Logan replied cautiously. His tail flicked behind him nervously. Ethan stepped inside, carrying a small bucket of water and some cloths. He did not kneel, he did not bow deeply. He simply moved with care, cleaning the polished floors near the prince. Logan watched him silently. "You don't have to stay," Logan said finally. His voice was small. "I mean, no one usually comes here." Ethan smiled just a little. "I like quiet places," he said. "And I like seeing things others don't notice." Logan tilted his head. "What things?" Ethan paused, dipping a cloth into the water. "Small things. Patterns in the marble. Dust on the window. The way the sun touches the top of your wing in the morning." He gestured to Logan's wings, careful not to stare. "Most people don't look. They only notice what is flashy." Logan looked down at his broken wings. "Nothing is flashy about me," he said softly. Ethan shook his head. "I don't think so. I think you notice things others never do. That is rare." The prince did not answer. He had never been praised for noticing anything. Usually his failings were counted, measured, compared. But Ethan's words were different. Quiet, kind, and honest. For the next few days Ethan returned at the same hour. He cleaned the hallways near Logan, sometimes spoke about small, ordinary things. Sometimes he did not speak at all. Logan began to wait for him. Not because he needed cleaning done, but because someone had chosen to be near him without expectation, without judgment. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed in, Ethan found an old book on a shelf. The pages were yellowed and dusty. He blew the dust away and handed it to Logan. "It has stories about dragons who flew even when no one believed they could," Ethan said. Logan opened the book carefully. The stories spoke of courage, mistakes, learning, and quiet victories. Dragons who had fallen, humans who had tried, creatures who had been ignored but still changed the world. He read a story about a small dragon who could not fly, yet led others safely through storms. Logan's heart beat faster. He did not say it aloud, but a tiny spark of hope had lit inside him. Ethan did not force Logan to read. He did not insist or lecture. He simply shared. He asked questions sometimes, letting Logan think and answer. Sometimes he would ask about Logan's dreams. "If you could fly even just a little, what would you do?" he asked one day. Logan hesitated. He had never told anyone his dreams before. But something in Ethan's eyes, something calm and patient, made him answer. "I would fly over the mountains. I would see the rivers. I would not be afraid." Ethan nodded. "Then we can start small. Even if it's just walking along the ledges or balancing on the beams. Step by step. The prince looked at him unsure. It sounded almost too simple. But it sounded possible. For the first time he felt that someone believed in him, not pitying him, not testing him, not comparing him to others, but genuinely believing. Little did they know the emperor was watching. From a distance, Emperor Rael Veyron observed the human who dared to spend time with his son. He said nothing. He allowed it. He believed, perhaps, that humans could never change dragons. He watched quietly, waiting to see if this bond would make any difference at all. Logan, however, did not see the emperor. He only saw Ethan, only heard his quiet encouragement, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Logan began to imagine a life beyond his broken wings. A life where he was not defined by what he could not do, but by what he could learn and what he could try. And so, in the forgotten wing of the palace, the human janitor and the broken dragon prince began a friendship that no one else noticed, but one that would quietly, slowly, change the entire dragon empire. The morning sun spilled through the tall windows again, painting the palace halls with soft gold light. Logan Veyron was already awake, sitting near the window in his quiet wing. His wings rested gently on the floor, folded and still. He watched the other dragon youths train outside, their laughter echoing faintly in the distance. None of them knew he existed beyond the whispers and polite nods. A faint scratching sound came from the hallway. Logan turned his head. It was Ethan Clark, as always, pushing a mop across the polished floor. He moved slowly, carefully, humming softly to himself, a song Logan did not recognize but found soothing. "Good morning," Ethan said, glancing up. His eyes were warm and steady, full of calmness that seemed to quiet the whole room. "Good morning," Logan replied. His voice was quieter than usual. Ethan carried a small box that rattled slightly as he walked. He placed it gently on the floor near Logan's perch. "I found something in the storeroom," he said. "I thought you might like it." Logan peered at the box. Inside were small, smooth stones, polished with care, each one glinting faintly in the sunlight. Some were blue like the river outside the palace, others red like the setting sun. Logan picked one up carefully. "They're pretty," he said softly. "Where did you find them?" Ethan smiled. "I keep an eye out for little treasures. Most people ignore them. But I think you might like them." Logan turned the stone in his claws. It was cold but smooth. "Thank you," he said almost shyly. No one had ever given him something so simple, so thoughtful. Most gifts in the palace were grand, meant to impress or show wealth. But this was personal. Over the next few days, Ethan began leaving small things for Logan. Sometimes it was a polished feather, sometimes a tiny crystal that reflected sunlight in colors Logan had never seen. He never explained why he chose them. Logan never asked. He just looked forward to the quiet moments when Ethan would appear. One afternoon, as Logan sat near a window, Ethan arrived with a small bundle of brushes and cloths. "Cleaning tools?" Logan asked, raising an eyebrow. "Not just that," Ethan said with a grin. "I thought we could polish your wings today. It won't make them fly, but it will make them shine." Logan hesitated. He had never let anyone touch his wings except the royal healers. But there was something in Ethan's presence that felt safe. Slowly he nodded. Ethan worked patiently, brushing each scale carefully. "They're strong, you know," he said softly. "Not because of flight but because they survived." Logan looked down at his wings. He had never thought of them that way. They were broken, yes, but they were still his. He had lived with them every day and he had not given up entirely. "Most people wouldn't notice the details," Ethan continued. "The little scratches, the faint patterns on the scales, but I see them. I always see them." Logan did not answer. He simply watched Ethan work, feeling warmth spread through him. This human saw him, not just his failures but him, truly. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the palace, dragons whispered. Tutors and nobles discussed the prince's continued solitude. Some shook their heads. "Humans cannot change dragons," they said. "He will remain hidden, forgotten, weak." But Logan did not hear them. He only heard Ethan's quiet words. And slowly, very slowly, he began to notice things he had ignored before. The way the sunlight bounced off the floor, the soft hum of the palace fountains, the faint smell of morning dew on the distant gardens. One day Ethan brought a small glass jar filled with water. Inside floated tiny, sparkling particles. Logan leaned closer. "What is it?" he asked. "Just little lights," Ethan said. "I found them near the fountains. They move with the water. It's beautiful but no one sees it. I thought you would." Logan smiled, a small, almost shy smile. He placed the jar on the windowsill and watched as sunlight passed through it, scattering colors across the walls. For the first time in a long time he felt calm, happy and curious all at once. "You notice things," Ethan said quietly, almost as if reading Logan's mind. "Most dragons look at the sky and see only the distance. You see shapes, patterns and beauty. That is a rare skill. And it's important." Logan tilted his head. "Important?" he asked. "How?" "Because sometimes seeing things others ignore can change more than strength or power," Ethan replied. "It can change people. It can change the world." Logan considered this. It was different from anything the tutors had told him. It was not about flying or fighting or impressing others. It was about noticing, understanding, and caring. Days passed in quiet routines. Logan practiced small movements, balancing along ledges with Ethan's careful guidance. They did not speak of flying yet. They did not speak of the throne. They spoke of stones, sunlight, jars of floating lights, and the way shadows moved across the palace floors. And each day Logan felt a little stronger. Not in his wings but in himself. Not in the eyes of the court but in his own heart. One evening as the sun dipped behind the palace towers, Logan asked Ethan a question he had never asked anyone. "Do you think I could ever do something that matters?" Ethan looked at him, calm and steady. "I know you can. Not because you can fly but because you see the world in ways no one else does. You notice what others ignore. That is more powerful than any wing, any roar, any crown." Logan felt a warmth spread through him. The court had ignored him. His tutors had ignored him. Even his own family had often ignored him. But this human, a janitor, had not. And that small act of belief, day after day, began to change something deep inside him. Unseen from his high chamber, Emperor Rael Veyron watched. He saw the human quietly guiding his son, the prince learning in small, unnoticed ways. The emperor said nothing. He allowed it. He believed that humans could not change dragons. But perhaps, just perhaps, he was about to see something he never expected. And so, in the quiet palace halls, among polished floors and scattered sunlight, Logan learned that small acts, small moments of attention, care and belief, could matter more than anything the court had ever praised. And that realization would begin a journey that no one, not even the emperor, could ignore. The palace was quieter than usual that morning. Most dragons were busy with their drills, lessons and flights. Logan Veyron stood at the edge of his wing, looking down at the gardens far below. His wings were folded, resting on the floor. He had watched so many flights, so many youths soar into the sky, and always felt the weight of his own limitations. Ethan Clark entered with his usual calm step, carrying a small bag filled with items he had found in the palace storerooms. "Morning," he said softly. "I brought some things that might help today." Logan glanced at him. "Help with what?" he asked. "Anything you want to try," Ethan replied, smiling. "Even if it's small." Logan hesitated. For so long he had only been watched by tutors who measured failures and nobles who whispered behind his back. No one had ever asked if he wanted to try or what he wanted. He looked at Ethan and felt a quiet trust. I want to try balancing on the ledges today," Logan said. "Not flying. Just walking carefully." Ethan nodded. "Good idea. We'll start small." They walked together to a long, narrow balcony above the palace garden. Logan's tail twitched nervously. The height made him uneasy but Ethan stayed close. "Step carefully," he said. "Feel each stone under your claws. Don't rush." Logan took a slow step then another. He stumbled slightly and his wings fluttered instinctively. "I'm not very good," he admitted. "You're learning," Ethan said quietly. "Learning takes time. Everyone falls the first few times. And look at this," he said, pointing to a faint shadow on the balcony floor. "See the sunlight? It shifts as you move. Notice it. That will help you balance." Logan focused on the sunlight, watching it move with him. Slowly his steps became surer. Each careful movement gave him a small spark of confidence. He realized that he could do more than he thought, not because his wings were perfect but because he had someone who believed in him. Meanwhile, across the palace, the dragon court prepared for a grand event, a ceremony to honor young heirs. Logan was not expected to attend. The nobles had whispered that he was too weak, too broken, too unimportant to be seen. But Logan did not care about their expectations anymore. He was learning something far more important. With Ethan's guidance, he walked the balcony with steady steps, balancing, noticing, and understanding each movement. "See," Ethan said quietly. "You are doing it." Logan smiled, a small but genuine smile. For the first time he felt that his abilities, however small, had value. He did not need to impress anyone else. He only needed to trust himself, and to accept that someone already believed in him. Later, while Logan practiced in a secluded corner of the palace, a messenger dragon arrived with a note from the Emperor. Logan's heart thudded. The Emperor rarely sent messages to him. Most were commands, not personal words. From Emperor Rael, Logan whispered. He held the note carefully. Ethan peered over his shoulder. Want me to read it with you? Logan shook his head. No. I will read it myself. Inside, the note said nothing of judgment or punishment. It simply asked Logan to observe the ceremony from the upper balconies. It was the first official recognition he had received in years. Logan's wings trembled, not from fear but from a quiet excitement. During the ceremony, Logan found a place where no one could see him clearly. He watched as young dragons, strong and proud, performed flights and acrobatics. The nobles clapped and cheered. Logan could have turned away, feeling small, invisible. But instead he stood quietly, observing carefully. He noticed mistakes that no one else saw. A misstep, a tiny wobble in the air, a scale that reflected sunlight differently. And he realized something: he could help. He did not need wings to guide others. He could guide with knowledge, with patience, with understanding. Ethan, he whispered later, I want to try helping them. Even if they won't listen. Even if they laugh. Ethan smiled. That is the right spirit. Belief is stronger than fear. And sometimes, belief changes more than anyone expects. Logan took a deep breath. He stepped closer to the center of the balcony, watching the young dragons below. Their movements were strong, but he could see where they might stumble. He called out softly, watch the wind here. Step slowly. Some dragons froze, surprised that a prince they had ignored was speaking. A few looked up and followed his advice. They did not know it yet, but Logan's words, steady and calm, helped them adjust and balance. He felt a quiet thrill. This was not defiance against the Emperor. It was not rebellion. It was something simpler, something purer, the courage to do what he believed was right no matter what others thought. From a high tower, Emperor Rael watched Logan. He expected the human to have little effect, and yet, he saw his son guiding others quietly, calmly, with insight no one else had taught him. He frowned slightly, not in anger but in surprise. Perhaps humans could change dragons after all. The ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed. Logan remained for a few minutes, watching the sunlight fade across the palace. His wings had not lifted him into the sky, but he felt taller than ever. He had acted with care, with knowledge, and with belief in himself. Ethan approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. I am proud of you, he said. Not because of what you did for them but because of what you did for yourself. Logan looked at him, eyes shining. I think I understand now. I can matter even if no one sees me. I can make a difference even if they ignore me. Ethan nodded. Exactly. And sometimes, that is more important than being the strongest, the fastest, or the most impressive. Sometimes, the quietest acts change the world. Logan smiled softly, feeling warmth spread through him. For the first time he realized that belief, someone believing in him, was not weakness. It was power. And he would carry it forward, quietly, calmly, and with purpose. And in the shadows above, the Emperor watched silently. He understood, perhaps for the first time, that a human's quiet faith could awaken strength in dragons in ways no sword, spell, or tutor ever could. The palace was buzzing with activity that morning. Dragons of all ages were gathered in the grand training hall for a special trial. It was a test of skill, balance, and courage, one that all heirs were expected to pass. The hall had tall platforms, narrow ledges, and delicate bridges stretched over a deep chamber. A single misstep could mean a fall, though not dangerous, just humiliating. Logan Veyron stood at the far edge of the hall. He was not supposed to participate. His wings were weak, his flight uneven. Tutors and nobles had quietly decided that he would remain behind, watching. Most dragons did not even glance at him. But Logan did not feel afraid. Not completely. With Ethan Clarke at his side, offering calm words and quiet support, Logan had learned that there were ways to succeed without the sky. He had learned that careful attention, patience, and belief could carry someone farther than sheer strength. The trial began. Young dragons stepped onto the platforms, their wings stretched, tails steady. They jumped from one ledge to another, flipping through the air, their scales gleaming in sunlight. Cheers and claps rang through the hall. Logan watched silently, analyzing each step. He noticed small errors others ignored. A tail flicking too late, a claw landing too close to the edge, a misjudged jump. Ethan leaned close and whispered, "Remember, you don't need to fly. You just need to move carefully. Notice what others miss." Logan nodded. His heart raced, but it was not fear. It was focus. He stepped onto the first ledge. It felt narrower than he remembered. The shadows of the ceiling fell across the stone, moving slightly as the sun shifted. He noticed them and adjusted his weight. Step by step, Logan moved across the first platform. His claws found balance, his tail acted as a counterweight. He did not rush. He did not try to impress. He simply moved carefully, quietly, like Ethan had taught him. A small crowd of young dragons stopped to watch. They were surprised. Logan Veyron, the prince they had ignored, the one whose wings had failed, was walking across the trial platform. Not flying, not jumping, not spinning, but moving perfectly balanced. His calm and careful steps contrasted with the rushed leaps of the others. The next obstacle was a narrow bridge stretching over the chamber floor. A slight sway made it tricky. Logan paused, studying the bridge, noticing how it bent under weight, how the light hit the surface. Slowly he stepped forward. One foot after another, he kept his balance. Every muscle in his body worked in harmony, every thought focused on movement. Below him, the other dragons gasped. No one expected him to even reach the center. But Logan did. His steps were steady, precise, and sure. Then came the final platform. A small ledge suspended in the air, where dragons were meant to pause and demonstrate control. Logan reached it. He did not flinch, even though the wind from the high windows swept around him. His tail swayed slightly, adjusting with each gust. Ethan called softly from below, "You're doing perfectly. Just a few more steps." Logan took one deep breath and extended his wings slightly, not to fly, just to steady himself. The crowd remained silent. The young dragons were frozen, staring at the prince who had never flown, now moving like a master of balance. For the first time, Logan realized he could succeed without needing to do what others considered essential. He could matter in his own way. Every careful step, every small adjustment, every observation he had learned from Ethan's quiet guidance brought him to this moment. Finally, Logan stepped to the center of the platform and paused. He looked down at the other dragons and then up at the balcony where the Emperor often watched. He did not bow. He did not demand applause. He simply stood, steady, confident, and calm. A few tutors whispered among themselves. Some nobles frowned. Others gasped quietly. No one had expected Logan Veyron to pass the trial, not in any way. Yet here he was, not flying, not performing dazzling tricks, but achieving something far more difficult, moving perfectly with awareness, patience, and focus. From the high balcony, Emperor Rael Veyron watched in silence. For the first time he saw that his son had learned something no tutor could teach. He had not relied on strength, speed, or flashy skill. He had relied on careful observation, thoughtful action, and someone's quiet belief. Ethan stepped closer to the edge below the platform and called, "You did it, Logan." "Perfectly." Logan smiled faintly, feeling a rush of pride, not from praise but from accomplishment. He had achieved something that others had thought impossible. Not by defying them, not by competing with them, but by moving carefully, learning steadily, and believing in himself. Some of the young dragons began whispering to each other. "He's different. He's better than we thought." They had expected failure. Instead they saw skill, patience, and courage. When Logan finally stepped down from the platform, Ethan was waiting. He placed a hand on Logan's shoulder and said softly, "See? I told you small acts, small attention, can make the impossible happen." Logan looked at him. "I never thought I could do something like this," he said. "Not flying. Not showing off. Just moving carefully." "That is more important than showing off," Ethan replied. "Sometimes people are too busy looking for power to see what matters." The Emperor's voice echoed quietly across the hall. "Prince Logan," he said. The words were calm, not commanding. "You have passed the trial in a way no one expected. Not by strength but by understanding and care. That is true skill." Logan blinked. No one had ever acknowledged him like this before. The applause from a few nobles and tutors echoed faintly. He did not feel pride from attention or noise, only from knowing that he had achieved something through patience, focus, and quiet belief. Ethan smiled proudly. "This is only the beginning," he said. "You can do more and others will see what you can do." Logan looked around the hall, at dragons who had doubted him, at the Emperor who had watched silently, and at Ethan, the human who had believed in him all along. For the first time he understood something important. Strength was not only in wings or flight. Sometimes strength was in patience, belief, and the courage to try quietly when no one else expected it. And in that quiet courage, Logan realized that he had changed, not only for himself, but in a way that might quietly change the whole Dragon Empire. The palace was unusually quiet the morning after the trial. The young dragons who had watched Logan Veyron move across the platform still whispered to each other. Some were impressed, some confused, and some were quietly ashamed that they had judged him too quickly. The news of Logan's unexpected success spread slowly through the halls. Ethan Clark arrived at the wing as usual, carrying a small bucket of water and a clean cloth. Logan looked up from the window where he had been observing the garden below. He smiled faintly. "Morning," Ethan said, setting the bucket down. "I thought we could go over balance exercises again today." Logan shook his head. "No," he said, smiling. "I think today we watch. I want to see what everyone does when they think no one is looking." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Learning by watching? That's good." They went together to the main hall. Logan remained at the balcony, carefully observing the young dragons as they trained. This time he did not guide them with instructions. He simply noticed. He saw when a tail swayed too fast, when a wing flicked too late, when a step was rushed. But he did not speak. He only understood. From above, Emperor Rael Veyron watched as well. He had attended the trial silently, but now he lingered to see the reaction of the court and the young dragons. He had seen many dragons pass or fail trials, but he had never witnessed one succeed in such a quiet, deliberate way. Logan had not used force or flight, yet he had commanded respect and attention. "Father," a young noble whispered, "he didn't even fly. He just walked, and yet he passed better than anyone." The emperor nodded slowly. "He has learned something we have long ignored. Strength is not only in wings or fire or size. Sometimes, it is in patience, care, and attention." Later that day, the emperor called for a private audience with Logan and Ethan. The hall was empty except for the three of them. Logan stepped forward carefully, wings folded. Ethan stood beside him quietly, his hand brushing a cloth over a railing. "Logan," the emperor began, his voice calm, "you have shown the court a lesson that I had not expected. Not through power, not through speed, not through the glory of flight, but through careful observation and steady courage. This is a lesson not only for dragons but for all who serve this empire." Logan looked at him, unsure how to respond. He had never heard such words from his father. No one had ever recognized his quiet effort before. "Humans," the emperor continued, glancing at Ethan, "are often overlooked. We consider them small, weak, and unimportant. But this human, in his quiet way, has helped you, taught you patience, and shown you how to see what others ignore. That is worth more than many skills we praise." Ethan's eyes widened slightly. No one had ever spoken of his role in such terms. He did not smile at the praise. He only looked at Logan. The prince took a deep breath. I didn't do it alone," he said quietly. "Ethan helped me see things I never noticed. He believed in me when no one else did." The emperor nodded. "And that belief has changed you. That is what matters. And it teaches the empire something important. Humans are not to be ignored. Their quiet work, their care, their attention to things others overlook, can shape dragons in ways we never imagined." From that day on, small changes began to appear in the palace. Humans were invited to assist in lessons, to observe training, and sometimes even to share advice. Dragons began to notice them not as servants, but as individuals who could see and guide, as companions who could teach patience and wisdom. Logan continued his lessons, but now he also helped others. He guided young dragons through careful steps and attention exercises, sharing what he had learned from Ethan. The palace halls echoed with quiet movements, careful balance, and a new understanding that strength was not only in wings or claws. Ethan remained by Logan's side, quietly proud. He did not seek titles or praise, but he could see the impact of his patient guidance. The dragons had begun to respect humans in ways they had never done before. They listened, they noticed, and they learned that wisdom and care could be as powerful as flight. One evening, as the sun set over the palace towers, Logan and Ethan sat together on the balcony. The wind brushed Logan's folded wings gently. "Do you think the Empire really learned?" Logan asked quietly. Ethan smiled. "I think they are learning. It takes time. But now they know that humans can teach, guide, and inspire. That belief, even from someone small, can change the world." Logan nodded. He looked at the horizon, the rivers and mountains stretching far beyond the palace walls. For the first time he felt not like a broken prince but like someone who mattered. He had learned courage, care, and patience. He had learned that even those who seemed small or overlooked could change the lives of dragons, and perhaps the empire itself. In the following months, historians and tutors recorded the trial differently than expected. It was not a story of failure or shame. It became a story of quiet belief, of small acts that changed hearts, and of the value of humans in a world of dragons. And as Logan grew stronger, not in flight but in wisdom, the Empire remembered what Ethan Clarke had quietly taught, that true strength is not always visible, and sometimes the smallest voice, the gentlest hand, can make the greatest difference. From then on, humans were no longer ignored. They were respected for their patience, their care, and their courage. And Logan, the prince who had once been broken, had become a symbol of a new understanding, one where belief and kindness could quietly shape the future of the Dragon Empire.